I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, June the 12th. Back home here in the Texas Panhandle after being way up in the Midwest attending the LMA Convention and the World Livestock Auctioneer Championship. Boy, did Bloomington, Wisconsin impress with the sale they had there, where they held the contest, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Jared Miller, your new World Livestock Auctioneer Champion, and he's going to do a good job. I know Jared Miller. He actually grew up in a small town in northwest Missouri, not far from where I lived for many years. I tell you what, a good, talented young auctioneer there, God-fearing, decent guy, and he come up the hard way. He started out selling produce at some little produce auctions around there in the northwest Missouri. He got a chance to sell some cattle at another friend of mine, Charles Swiger, is an old auctioneer himself, but he heard the talent there, asked him to come help him with his production sale where he raises purebred Herefords and Angus cattle there. Then the word quickly spread. Randy Gibson from LMA Livestock Auction up in Iowa, in the edge of Iowa there, he brought him in, started letting him sell cattle on a regular basis, and he just took off from there. And first time I ever heard him was at Green City, Missouri, and I knew the first time I heard him that if he wasn't a world champion, that something was wrong, because he definitely had the talent and really adapted to it well. And he's even grown now, which he's into management at the LMA Livestock Auction there with Jason Allen, another good guy that I got a chance to meet and become more acquainted with there in Dubuque, Iowa at the LMA Convention. And that LMA Convention, you see a lot of people there you don't see very often that own and operate auction markets all across the nation. You see a lot of buyers there. You see just people that are active in the industry, and we were able to sign up some more people to start reporting their market on Cattle Market Central. It was a success for us here at DV Auction to be out there and go to it. But the LMA is the undisputed voice of the auction method of competitive livestock marketing, and everybody pretty much knows that. They're always pushing the auction method of selling cattle, and nobody pushes that any more than I do on a daily basis. You know, the way that I like to advertise the big sales and especially the big strings that sell in the auctions, because it's so easy for those cattle to be sold in the country. I want to give people credit and advertise them when they do sell a big string in a brick and mortar building, an on-site auction market there. But LMA is not just an advocate. They do other things too, which you don't hear that much about. But when I was a young man, we had a family livestock auction. We were LMA members. They offer affordable insurance, both liability, property insurance, livestock insurance. They help with that. They offer a lot of services there. They give you advice. Their reps come around and help you jump through the hoops that you have with government things, with getting your clerk system lined out. Just a lot of things. That's what they deal in, is livestock markets all the time. And if you're not an LMA member and you have a sale barn, you're way behind, because you're not getting that help. They offer legal advice, and just anybody that owns or operates a livestock market probably is going to have a tough time doing it if they're not an LMA member. But Mark Mackey, the chief there, he's been doing that for a long time, does a good job, hires good people, and then the association is made up of people in the industry. Your new president is Tom Fry from Creston, Iowa, good friend of mine, and a really first-rate class guy there. So he'll be in charge of the association there for the next 2 years, and it's in good hands. But this auctioneer contest they put on really puts a big focus on the convention and the industry itself. But at Bloomington Livestock Market in Bloomington, Wisconsin, just unbelievable the kind of show that they put on there. Just had around 4,500 head of cattle there, and just made up of really good cows to sell there, big groups of yearling feeders, and a lot of good fat cattle, which a lot of the auctioneers there, especially those in the Southwest, never got to sell fat cattle at auction, especially fat cattle like that. But we were all excited on Friday there that they sold fat cattle direct in the 5 areas and around the country for $1.15, which was $5 higher. Well, at the auction in Bloomington, Wisconsin, they were selling these top quality high choice and prime fat steers for up to $123.50. The heifers bringing that kind of money too, but nearly all of them bringing over $1.20 there that had this kind of quality. And in fact, when they offered up some load lots but split them up in 3 different jags, if a guy got the first 2 jags bought, he might pay up more than that for the last one. But that's just the way the buyers operate. But also had a lot of good yearling feeder cattle there. You look at this report on your feeder steers on Cattle Market Central. You're not going to see a report like that anywhere else for this sale, but look at some of the average prices on these different weight groups. But 569 head of steers in the 8 weight group averaged 836 pounds at 147.38. That would have set the RTI and the index on its ear, except for we were just barely in Wisconsin, so it doesn't go into the index, either your real-time index or your Chicago Mercantile Index. But my gosh, it would have raised it if we'd have had those numbers going in. But your 9 weight steers, 430 head of them, averaged 957 at 134.09. And just dollars and dollars higher than anywhere else you could see anywhere. But look at this individual quote that I pulled from Bloomington, Wisconsin on Saturday there. 62 head of steers weighed 823 pounds at 155.25. So very impressive market there. I'm impressed with how they moved the cattle through. All the auctioneers, all 31 of them, got the same kind of drafts, and they weren't selling odds and junk. They were selling good cattle all day long. All your big buyers were there. Harold Stewart, king of the cow buyers, he was there pushing your cows going to slaughter at prices you don't see. Some of those cows bringing up into the low 80s. For a slaughter cow. Yeah, listen to that guy selling them in the 50s about everywhere else in the country. But just can't tell you how impressive the convention and the contest was. And now we'll get on to this week's market. You look at the board for Monday. August live cattle futures down $1.60 to end the day at 104.17. June spot live cattle down $1.37 at 108.65. You wonder, why did any of this happen? You know, everything's looking up, looking up. I think this summit that's happening with the North Korean leader is kind of scaring people. There's a lot of trade things going on. That G7 deal didn't really end up on a positive note, you know, and that's a good customer of ours up there in Canada. I think maybe some of your cattle guys are really scared of that, and it's, you know, the market was up good last week and time for it to come down, but things are still going good. Look at your feeder cattle. August feeder cattle down $1.32, kind of pulled down by the fat market there, 145.95. Your October down 77 cents out there at 147.57. Your grains were down hard too, and part of that's blamed on this global scare here as Trump is trying to get things. He's trying to do a lot of things, get our trade deficits lined out, trying to get this peace deal done with North Korea, and just it's very volatile right now. But also we got a crop production report coming out on Tuesday here, and there's a little bit of uncertainty about that. But look at the weighted average on last week's fat cattle trade in your 5 area feeding region, 116,300 head on there. Your live steers average 114.66 with top prices at 115, but that weighted average was $4.11 higher than the previous week. Your dressed steers average 182.75, up $5.40 compared to the weighted average of previous week. You look on a national basis, and there was 130,900 head sold, and your Western packers were pretty hungry, and there's cattle that are trading outside your 5 area, but your market is really established in the 5 area. But you look at that 2 to 4 week sales out front, which really did a lot to hurt us in that past dip that we had right before we got to the big numbers of cattle, and we were selling a lot more than usual for 2 to 4 week delivery. But last week only 17%, which was still up from the previous week of 10%, which really helped us in a way get that market back. But not too many cattle. I think your packers would like to buy more cattle for a 2 to 4 week delivery, but now these sellers are starting to see that really hinders us trying to work through numbers whenever you give your packers all your leverage. But 83% of those negotiated sales were for immediate delivery. But let's look at your feeder markets now. Real-time index on Beef Market Central based on the 800-pound steer ended the day on Monday at 139.72. That was 4 cents higher than it ended the week last week. So not a whole lot of change in there. Still got a good feeder cattle market. Your board didn't break till right at close, so most of your trading had already been done, and people were pretty positive. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City had 9,500 head. Feeder cattle there $1 to $4 higher. Steer calves had a higher undertone, but are not really a good test. Heifer calves were $2 to $5 higher. Joplin Regional Stockyards 7,600 head there. Feeder cattle steady to $3 higher. Lighter weight calves and yearlings selling mostly steady. Look at a couple of individual quotes. One out of Joplin there on some steer calves. 80 head of steer calves weighed 535 pounds. Bring $1.80. That's a pretty good price there, you know, and when the bulk of your cattle have already been turned out and we're kind of working into the grazing season. But now look at a report or a price there which is right on your index price at close to 800 pounds and a good test of the market. In Oklahoma City, National Livestock Commission sold 51 head of 798-pound steers on Monday at $144.75. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.